Prime Minister Motley and her CARICOM colleagues seek United Nations help for the Venezuelan crisis. A social approach required to stem local crime. And in sports, there are no more undefeated teams in the Premier League.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the CBC Evening News. And our top story, Prime Minister Mia Motley and other CARICOM leaders held several meetings at the United Nations today as the regional body seeks to play its part in helping to find a solution to the crisis in Venezuela. Our Kent Jerson has more on that story.
Prime Minister Mia Motley and the high-powered CARICOM team met with United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. CBC understands the leaders also spoke to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro by phone and also met with Russian officials. The Caribbean leaders were at the UN to enlist the international organization's help in resolving the Venezuelan crisis. While no details from the meeting have been released as yet, what we do know is that several CARICOM heads and foreign ministers met in a special emergency session last Thursday to discuss the current situation in Venezuela. At that time, they agreed that the long-standing political crisis, which has been exacerbated by recent events, could only be resolved peacefully through meaningful dialogue and diplomacy. They have called on all actors, internal and external, to avoid actions which could escalate an already explosive situation to the detriment of Venezuelans. Ms. Motley was invited to participate in the UN meeting by Chairman of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, Dr. Timothy Harris, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Dr. Jerome Walcott, and Chair of the CARICOM Caucus at the UN, Ambassador Elizabeth Thompson, were also part of the delegation. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
And as the battle between Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and self-appointed President Juan Guaido continues, the humanitarian situation for thousands of Venezuelans worsens. CNN's Nick Patton-Walsh went undercover inside Venezuela and filed this report.
Cross into Venezuela's unending disaster, the world's worst growing refugee crisis. And it's like the world, as you know it, is slowly ending. Oil once made them the richest in South America, but this is now the line for 3 days and nights to get a full tank. In the capital, there's a queue for everything, everywhere. Hunger breeds a special kind of anger.
This is how hyperinflation works. These groceries cost $50 now, but because of what's happening with the local currency, they'll be worth double at least by next month. People paying tomorrow's prices today.
There's no queuing for the youngest, living off what, even here, nobody wants. This isn't play, it's practice for self-defense. My brother got killed in July by another gang, says 14-year-old Usmaria. They found the body in the river. We gather stuff, we beg a piece of chicken skin to take home. In the socialist utopia that now leaves nearly every stomach empty. This was the day when change was meant to come. Hundreds of thousands flooding central Caracas, watching opposition leader Juan Guaido swear himself in as interim president. But it fast turned sour. They've had this standoff outside the military airfield here for months.
At home now, there's a level of unease on the island as Barbadians have been voicing their opinions on the recent spike in gun and violent crimes in the country. Tonight, Shane Jones takes an in-depth look at the situation with the help of criminologist Yolande Ford.
Not boat here. I want to repeat myself, not boat here.
Those were the strong words of Prime Minister Mia Motley as she pledged to meet the recent gun violence in Barbados head-on. So when she says not bout here, let's zoom in and see exactly where here is. We will take a look at the map of Barbados and pinpoint where some of the violent crimes have been committed. Most recently, just a few days ago, in fact, a man was shot in the back at 9 in the morning in Gemswick, St. Philip. Okay, moving now to Baxter's Road, where Corey Paris died after an unknown gunman opened fire on him in traffic. Well, this one wasn't gun-related, but in another violent matter, 35-year-old Barry Taylor of Shophill was stabbed to death in Cane Garden. Then, we have an incident on January 17th where gunmen opened fire on patrolling police in Chapman Lane. Well, not very far from there, 2 men were shot and injured after being fired upon by 4 masked men in New Orleans. Okay, in Barbary Hill now, 44-year-old Darrell Harris was shot multiple times and died while being transported to hospital. And now, right next door to us here in the Pine, Ronald Rudder was gunned down when he was reportedly sitting alone at a house at Ridgeway. Shane Brown of Odessa McLean Road was shot in one of his feet late in the night on January the 9th. And I remember this one well. I had to cover it. The first shooting death of 2019 occurred on January 8th when 24-year-old Shaquille Toppin was gunned down outside his Danesbury St. Michael home. Now, while the Prime Minister would have outlined policy for the police to enforce, another important factor to examine is the social one. I spoke with criminologist Yolande Ford, who has specialized in initiatives relating to crime reduction strategies. The professional of 26 years' experience says while the recent violent activity is disappointing, it hasn't surprised her. Now, Ms. Ford says crime is first and foremost a behavioral problem.
Continue to focus all of our attention and resources in the solitary direction of crime response, then you are not stemming the tide. You are just hoping for the best. My experience, and this happened last year and the year before, is that usually at some point in time in the year, it might not be January, but usually at some point in time in the year, we have this kind of spike in criminal violence. You tend to have this kind of spike.
Admitting that the violent start to the year is indeed abnormal for Barbados, the island's inaugural director of the National Task Force on Crime Prevention says there must be at least a 3-pronged attack on crime and for Barbadians to stop having unrealistic and unreasonable expectations of police officers.
A gun does not shoot itself. You can't have a stabbing without some human element. And even if you go back to the years gone by when people used to pelt big rocks, a big rock can't pelt itself. There's always the human element. It's human behavior. So therefore, what drives that kind of behavior in particular individuals? It has to be their thought process, their perceptions, their belief systems, their value systems, and their sense of right and wrong.
Ms. Ford, who is Barbados' first criminologist, says her work has proven that the criminal characteristic evolves within people and can be prevented if identified at an early stage. However, she believes that is not being done.
We are almost waiting for this full flourishing of the criminal violence, and then there's an uproar. There is a big hue and cry about it, but I would argue that these individuals have been in the criminal pipeline for a long time. I have spent a lot of times talking with criminals in this jurisdiction and in other countries and throughout the region. And when you listen to their life stories, you can tell that these behaviors were evident throughout their school life.
Ms. Ford says for crime reduction to be successful, it is essential that Barbados has specific programming that addresses criminal behavior from very early on. I'm Shane Jones for CBC News.
And thank you so much, Shane. Well, government is working to address complaints about long waits for police certificates of character. Minister of Smart Technology, Senator Kay McConney, says they have the technology to help speed up the process. But she explains that it will take some time before it can be implemented. And she was speaking during a St. James North branch meeting at the St. Albans School last evening.
If I am to search Diana's past to get information about whether or not she has had a criminal record, those records are currently written on pieces of card by hand. So somebody now has to get up, go over there, go to a cabinet, open the cabinet, find Diana among the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of records that are there, and then hope that in case Diana went to court last week, that the court updated her record as of last week, and that what they see in that cabinet is not from 13 years ago. So because that is on paper, handwritten, it is hard to search at a pace.
The Cathedral Church of St. Michael and All Angels was filled to capacity to bear witness to the enthronement that made the Right Reverend Michael Maxwell the 14th Bishop of Barbados. Just after 6 this evening, the church heard the 3 symbolic knocks from Bishop Maxwell as he sought admission into the cathedral.
Open for me the gates of righteousness, and I will enter and give thanks to the Lord. I, Michael Bruce St. John Maxwell, by divine permission, Bishop of Barbados, having been duly appointed and confirmed, make my request of you, very reverend brother, that I be conducted to the bishop's seat in the Cathedral Church of Barbados, there to be inducted, installed, and enthroned according to the ancient usage and prescriptive rite.
And then around half an hour later, the title was officially conferred upon him by Dean of the St. Michael's Cathedral, the Very Reverend Jeffrey Gibson.
Good people, we here declare to you that the enthronement of Michael Bruce St. John, by divine permission, Bishop of Barbados, is now duly and fully accomplished.
Another female has joined the island's ever-growing centenarian club. Family, friends and well-wishers gathered at the Montrose Christchurch home of Lillian Batson to join in the celebrations for a woman whom they respect and love. The island's newest centenarian also enjoyed the company of Governor-General Dame Sandra Mason. Lillian, a former laborer at the Kendall Plantation in her younger days and a vendor at Cheapside Market, is the mother of 6 children. 1 predeceased her and grandmother of 21. Her daughter Mavis Batson says her mother worked hard to provide for her children, and she says her mom ensured that they attended church.
She made sure that we had a good education and we went to church. We didn't ask if we had to go to church. We had to go to church. And she's the second generation, she know that. We had to go to church. We all confirmed very early, and we had to go to church. And before we could, we had to know, especially that thing that said, keep your hands from picking and stealing, and your tongue from evil speaking, learning, and slandering. To keep your body in sobernness and chastity, to hold nobody by word nor deed, but be true in all your justice. We had to know our catechism. We had to know our Lord's Prayer. We had to know her commandments. She was a wonderful, she is a wonderful leader.
And for the Woman of the Day, Lillian, she thanked God for living to see her 100th birthday, and the centenarian is still active.
Work, I'm growing a different thing and work hard. Can't tell you all the work I do, you laugh at me.
Well, young people throughout communities in Barbados have been reminded about the important role that sporting activity can play in their development. In fact, Minister of Youth and Community Empowerment Adrian Ford has told some of the participants in the ministry's Community Sports Training Program 2018 that there are also numerous opportunities to excel globally. He made the comment during the culmination event for the annual program at the Dighton Griffith Secondary School. He also participated in some of the sporting activities with some of the young people, including road tennis, where he displayed his signature slam, much to the delight of the young people.
I think it's important that for us to get out there and do and provide not only entertainment, but provide the camaraderie, the heart and the spirit that Barbados really need on the field. And I want to say that sports in Barbados and around the world has always been used as a vehicle to put countries on the map.
And the minister adds that the health benefits of sporting activity also cannot be denied.
In today's world where we're having an upsurge of chronic non-communicable diseases, especially with our young people, persons under the age of 21 are now suffering from high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, and I'm saying one of the most important weapons to fight these chronic illnesses is exercise and diet. And I want to say that exercise plays a very important role in controlling these diseases. So not only are you playing sport for the benefits, because you can have a lot of lucrative benefits from sports, but it is good also for your body.